Okay, I see our tech person. We're ready to start. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming this nice Sunday afternoon. No rain, which is good. I'd like to also welcome members of the Sequoia Stamp Club. We're here. Raise your hands. Also, I'd like to welcome all on Zoom. Is our Zoom on? Andrew, where's Andrew? Zoom's on. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody on Zoom, and especially those members of the Society of Israel Philatelists. And there are even some of those from Israel who are on the line now, and it's now midnight. So they're pretty dedicated, and I'd like to say Erev Tov to them. I would like to thank both the Rit Havara and Congregation Beth Jacob for sponsoring this event, and the ladies of the Havara for setting up a great sweet table outside. Some of you saw it. And if you didn't see, we have a special treat, kosher fortune cookies out front. Those are, and some of our past members were what they called Shanghai Landers, and they would know that. And Cantor Hans Cohen, who was a cantor here for many years, he was a survivor. And Fritz Gelb and his wife Steffi, who lived in San Carlos. And lost my place here. And Hurst Summer, is Noreen here? Noreen is here. Good. We're going to talk. So Noreen will be talking a little later. I don't know if she looked over there and she can see her picture. You see your pictures right there. Okay. This is the story of survival shown through mail and documents. And in philatelic stamp collecting world, this is known as postal history. I had a lot of people call me and say, well, what's a postal historian? What does that mean? I say, that means you get the history through post office, through postal envelopes and so forth. And from 1939 to 1945, Shanghai became a modern Noah's Ark, accepting more than 18,000 Jewish refugees fleeing the impending Holocaust in Europe. Most were from Germany and Austria, but the refugees also included students of the famed Mir Yeshiva, the only yeshiva in occupied Europe to survive the Holocaust. And today, the largest yeshiva system. After the war, they split into two groups, half going to Brooklyn and half going to Jerusalem. And my grandson wanted to tell you he attended Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem. So I got it in for him. He's watching, so let him know. In Shanghai, all the Jews were assigned to live in the designated area, the Hangqiu district. We'll see that. There's a map outside, I think, and we'll show it on screen. And the Hangqiu district, it was really a horrible area and harsh conditions, up to 10 per room. They were hungry, disastrous sanitation. We're talking about no sanitation. I mean, they had to go down to the lot down in a bucket. We're talking about real disasters, and no employment. But with the aid of some Iraqi Jews, wealthy ones, the Khajuris and the Sassoon families, the Joint Distribution Committee, and other Jewish agencies, most of the refugees managed to survive, and many went on to become remarkable lives, including Michael Blumenthal, the former U.S. Treasurer. Pardon? What was that? I'm talking too fast. My wife will tell you the same thing. Okay, I'll talk slower. Thank you. Okay. Many went on to remarkable lives, including Michael Blumenthal, the former U.S. Treasurer. And this talk brings together artifacts and personal stories that weave the story of the Jews and the port of last resort, which is Shanghai. So we'll begin now. I guess we will. You told me that, and it's not going forward. There. No, it's not going forward. Andrew. Okay. What do I hit? Okay. Anyway, the Jews of Germany were, in their mind, were Germans first. They were there many centuries, and they considered themselves German Jews, not Jewish Germans, German Jews. And they even were very active in the First World War, won many awards. And here you see, I hope you see online, you see a guy. This is a field rabbiner, head rabbi, and Dr. Sali Levy of Breslau, and he's in his full outfit. He was active in World War I, and the Jews were they won a lot of awards. Okay, nope, there we go. Then came the Nuremberg Laws on September 15th, 1935, and these were laws dealing with Jews and what had to be done. Doctors could only treat Jewish patients, Jewish doctors. By the way, 40% of the doctors and attorneys in Germany at that time were Jewish. All of a sudden, The doctors could only treat Jewish patients. We have Rich Candel's father, who was there at that time. Rich, raise your hand somewhere. Anyway, his father also, they left Germany because he could only deal with Jewish patients. Other ones were limited. Who could go? The kids couldn't go to the schools. You couldn't get jobs. It became very, very difficult to live. Then the real breaking point was November 9th to 10th, which was anniversary just a few days ago, 1938, and was what they call Kristallnacht, where the Nazis burned all kinds of synagogues and destroyed businesses. And you see on the screen, I hope, we've seen a business with the windows broken. And the reason it's called Kristallnacht was the night of broken glass. And so this was the turning point. The Jews of Germany then realized they were Jews first and not Germans first. And that was the turning point when they decided, look, we've got to get out. The problem was no countries would accept them, and you had to have money. These were middle-class citizens, but there was nowhere to go, and except one place, Shanghai. You didn't need any paperwork. The Germans took all the passports away, so they had no passports, no paperwork, and they had to get somewhere. I'm sorry, pardon, what? I'm sorry. I can't even hear you. They can't hear in the back? What did you say? I'm sorry, I don't understand. But I don't hear so well, so that's all right.
Who's asking a question? Who?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Okay. Now we can go ahead. There we go. Okay, so this talk is called the Port of Last Resort. As I mentioned, this is because this was the last place that would accept Jews. And starting at 1939, a huge amount of Jews were able to get out. And they went to Hamburg and took ships to Shanghai. And they were not allowed to take money with them, but they were allowed to take their possessions. And they took huge trunks full of everything, including china, silverware, fancy dresses, furs. And let me tell you, in Shanghai, you didn't need furs, you didn't need fancy dresses. So the silver and dishes they actually sold because they needed money desperately. So this is the first scene they saw. These are two postcards of the entrance to Shanghai, the Bund, and these are the views from the port, these two. And the bottom one shows there's a big one outside. You'll see in the lobby, I think it is, a map of where they had to go live in Kangqiu, which is shown here. Okay, so here's a ship. This is a postcard written on the ship as they're coming to Shanghai, and they write to their relatives in the US, and it's postmarked in Singapore. And there's a picture of the ship, and most of these Jews came on Lloyd Tristino lines, a couple of different ships. And so let me see, how come, Andrew, where are you? How can you, Andrew, where? I need to raise this up so I can see the bottom. I can't read this might get a little smaller so I can see the bottom here. I'll raise it up. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so this is, pardon? This is from March 1939, and it's written back to Germany, Lloyd Trostino lines, and you can see the cancel from Singapore. Okay, here you have a 1939 cover from a Jewish passenger on Lloyd Trostino line with the, a stamp person would understand this, it has a perfin, which means punched holes on the stamp, and it's got the LT, which is for Lloyd Trostino line stamp, and it's addressed to the company, the family's still in Vienna. But, okay, so you have a Lloyd Trostino line stamp on there. Okay. Here you have two 1939 covers from Australia to Jewish refugee families in Shanghai. Both addressed care of poste restante, which means they didn't have an address when they came. Where are they going to stay? So they addressed it to poste restante, which meant care of the post office. But China did something that wasn't really nice. They charged people money to pick up their mail. And what do? They put a stamp on, a Chinese stamp. So if you look on the lower cover on the right-hand side, you see an Australian stamp on top, and on the right-hand side below that, you'll see canceled a Chinese stamp. That was like postage due. They couldn't get their mail unless they paid postage due, which these people didn't have money. It was a really difficult thing. Pardon? I'm sorry. Okay. Here you have a 1939 registered cover envelope from Vienna to a Jewish refugee in Shanghai, and it's addressed to American Express. They would take, instead of going to the post office, which is post restant, if you addressed it to American Express, they would do the same thing. They would hold the mail for you, and registered meant somebody had to sign for it, and it probably had money in it, which was a real problem. These people were very poor, had no money. They weren't allowed to take any money when they left, as I mentioned, and they had to sell their personal belongings at real cheap prices, and they had a tough time surviving. Okay. Here you have a postcard from Shanghai to Tel Aviv, which a lot of them had relatives there. And their new address is 100 King Chow Road, room 106, house 1, Jewish refugee home, Hongqiu. The Jewish agencies and the Joint Distribution Committee had to set up these houses, homes, in German, home, and they lived in these communal situations. And they had food there like a soup kitchen. So these people, they had nowhere to go and they had nothing to eat and they had no money. So they lived in, a lot of them, in homes that were set up by the Joint Distribution Committee in, not, if they didn't have a family, these were mostly single individuals. Okay, here's one that I was stumped about. And if you look up top in real small letters, you'll see Hebrew, some Hebrew letters. And the person who wrote it did a good job of deceiving it. It looks like it's part of the postcard, but it's not. He wrote on there, and my Hebrew, I had to have it translated. What it means is with the help of God. So you see very small up top. It looks like part of the postcard. It's not. It's in Hebrew. Do you all see that up top? Right up top, 3 Hebrew letters. But the people in Germany were not real religious. These were really, they're very assimilated. They are mostly very reformed. They were not real super Hebrew literate, which is surprising for this. Most of them were, actually, they had talked about changing the name of the rabbis to reverends. So they even talked about having services on Sunday instead of Saturday. I mean, this is how assimilated they were. They were real German first. Okay, here you have a registered Berlin cover, and it's to Werner Cohen, and he was a passenger on the Japanese ship Uramco, and it's care of the post office box in Shanghai, and so forth. But this Werner Cohen, by the way, you'll see a lot of it. He actually made it to Los Angeles at the end, so he survived. Most of these people survived unless disease got them. They didn't get killed. Later on, we'll catch why they didn't get killed. Let's see if I can get it going. And where's Andrew? It's not. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here we go. Nazis and the Nazis and the Japanese were fighting together, but the Japanese liked Jews and I'll tell you the reason why. Japanese banks in the 1920s lent the country of Japan money, and they thought Jews were okay. So the Nazis kept pushing requests to do like in Germany, and they had to add their name. In Germany, if you were Jewish, you had to add your name Israel or Sarah so they could track the mail. So here you got a thing in German requesting that the Germans in Shanghai, if you see up here, Shanghai, use Israel. The Japanese never do that. They never enforce this. It says here you should use the name Israel. Japanese didn't go along with it. Okay. So here again, you have Werner Cohen and now via Siberia. What happened was the shipping was getting real. By 1940, the war was starting, not Hawaii yet, but war was starting, and the shipping was really getting difficult by ship. So a lot of stuff went via Siberia, over railroad, over land. And here you have Werner Cohen in Shanghai from a relative of his, and you see here addressed to Helen Sarah Cohen, I guess it says it here. It doesn't say, it's on the back. Anyway, it's from Helen Sarah Cohen, a relative was left behind. Okay, here you have again 1940 cover from Germany to Jewish refugees in Shanghai via Siberia. And it got, if you look, those of you who can read Cyrillic, it's censored by Germans and Russians. You can see across about right over the word Shanghai, you see that's Russian censor and Chinese censor. So everybody was censoring the mail, but that one has Russian censor. Okay, here, this is a real sad story. In 1941, the central government, general government postcard. This is where they were in a ghetto, family was in ghetto, and they're writing from Clementov ghetto to Shanghai, to a relative in Shanghai, and they're asking, in the back, it says, they're writing their children who fled to Shanghai, asking for food parcel to survive. Also states that the mother was still in Vienna, and it was censored by the Wehrmacht. So this is a real tragedy. So here you got a ghetto, the parents are in ghetto, and the kids made it to Shanghai, and they're asking for help, which they can't get. Nobody's going to give them help. Here again, the same kind of thing. If you look up a really small upper left corner, little box, and that says Warsaw Ghetto in German, upper left box. And again, this is from a ghetto in Warsaw to Heisem, which is a Jewish organization in Shanghai, and they're looking for people. In other words, this is looking for relatives. So Jewish people in the ghetto in Warsaw are trying to find relatives in Shanghai, and via Heisem. This is real history. This is real, what's called postal history. So of course it'll go on, it'll be good. Where's Andrew? It's not moving. There we go. Okay, this is every Jewish were very literate people, but you had a lot of different political views, a lot of different, all kinds of different countries they're from. So you had lots of Jewish newspapers. You had Jewish newspapers in Shanghai. I forget how many to say how many here. No, but this one is from Israel Messenger, which was in Shanghai, and this is addressed to Dr. Stephen Wise, which was a big-time rabbi in the United States, and this what does it say? The paper, in between 1939 and 1941, excuse me, there were 7 Jewish daily newspapers in Shanghai. 7 different daily newspapers in Shanghai. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, oh, now we got a problem here. What else is happening here?
I'm here the whole time. I'm in the back. It takes me a minute to walk
What
up
happened?
here. It just takes me a minute to walk up here. You don't have to worry. I'm never leaving you. I'm here the whole time. I'm going to fix it.
Okay, we need to get rid of the box. We are. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's where we are. Okay, it's very unusual that all these Jewish immigrants were very business-minded. They didn't have any money, but they're always thinking of trying to make some money. So this one, a guy had set up a rarities store in Shanghai, as you can see on the left is postcard, and it's addressed to somebody in Shanghai, in Hangqiu, which is the Jewish settlement. And it's very unusual to see inland mail. Most of the mail came in or out of Shanghai. Very little of it went inland, from one thing to another. So here you have a very unusual postcard that went from this rarities business to somebody in Shanghai. I don't know. I forget what the message says. Let's see if it says. No, it probably come pick up your items. I don't know. Oh, Andrew, this is jumping. Here we come. I don't know why this happened. That's what we need Alan. Yeah, maybe I'm pushing the wrong thing. Okay, so what am I supposed to hit? Hit this one? Space bar. Okay, thank you. That's my problem. You're right. Okay, so let's get out of this one. Much better. It's my fault. Here you got a 1941 cover to a refugee at 4805 East Seward Road, House 17, Shanghai. This is a refugee camp set up by a Jewish organization for homeless. So again, certain addresses you see over and over, and they're addressed to these shelters, basically shelters. And that address, 805 East Seward Road, is right in the middle of the ghetto area, the future ghetto area. Okay, here's an unusual one. It was 1941 from Germany to a Jewish refugee with a handwritten note, the postmaster. Upon identification and legitimation, in other words, it's registered, and he wants to make sure the right person picks it up. Registered, they have to sign for it, but he's so worried that they're not going to get, they're not going to get this postcard. That he even puts on there, make sure the right person signs it and identifies themselves that they're the pickup person. That. Okay. You have registered coverage to Palestine, and they were censored in Singapore, which meant it went by ship, which at that time it was still going by ship. Before Hawaii entered, before bombing of Hawaii, stuff went by ship to Palestine, to wherever it would go. And the register, you see censored on the right-hand side, the upper one, you have censored in Palestine, the label and the hexagon, and the bottom you see also those are the censor markings. So this is a well-traveled, and in the lower left, you see a triangle next to the Chinese stamps. That's Singapore censor. Now let's see how it is right. There we go. Okay, here you have a 1941 Shanghai Hebrew mission cover with 50-cent Chinese stamp, and it was mailed on the U.S. President Cleveland Seapost cancel to Los Angeles. So you see the cancel. To stamp collectors, this is unusual. Okay, you have Shanghai Hebrew mission, and it went by Seapost, and it got a nice cancel from the SF President Cleveland. Okay, here again, you see upper left corner, JWB, Jewish Welfare Board, and they were, again, one of the Jewish agencies active. This is 1941, and this went to Warner Blau in Heisem Branch in Shanghai to Adolf Blau, I guess it's his relative, in Brooklyn. Here's sideways one. Well, whatever. Again, it's a Jewish agency one where they sent in documents. Here's one. It's not in very good shape, but it was via USA, shipped to Hawaii, and then across the Atlantic, went all the way around, because this is June 22nd, 1941, and they're worried about Pearl Harbor and so forth. And so in June 22nd, she says on here, via the US, and it went all the way around the world to get there. And they got the point after Pearl Harbor that there was no mail. Again, Shanghai's a port, and the only way you could get mail was on a ship. And during World War I, during World War II, there were no ships going to Shanghai because they'd get torpedoed. So here you have Palestine to Shanghai, and it says service suspended, no return to center, no mail. There's no mail. There's no way to get mail in and out. So they lost all communication. This was actually October 41. It got caught in, because of time, it got caught in the December thing. And so all of a sudden, no communication with your relatives. They didn't know what was really going on in Germany. They were kept, as most people know, they were kept pretty quiet. And they didn't know what's happening to their relatives, not getting mail. There weren't any internet, Okay, so here you have somebody sent something. This is really unusual. It got through. We don't know how it got through, but a postcard from Shanghai to Palestine, written in November 42, with postal service was suspended. Yet it made it to Palestine. If you read on the upper, you'll see a hexagon censor mark on the left of the stamps that it got censored in Palestine, which means it got there. And the route's unknown. Who knows? And he puts on there that he thinks this would help, which must have, I don't know. He puts in the return address, nation former German. I don't know if that helped. I don't know, but we don't know how it got. Somehow it got on a ship somewhere. There were no ships. Who knows how it got there? But it got to Palestine because it's got censored in Palestine. Okay, these are what Red Cross forms, and they were sent for missing people. They would send one to a cousin, he would send to his father, and then looking for his son or someone. So here you have someone from Palestine is looking for his relative in Shanghai. So it says, in English, what does it say? Still no news of you, and bodily and mentally healthy. My garments are ragged, but hope keeps me in good humor, and so forth. Affectionately, father. It's father and son. So the father wrote to Shanghai, and he got an answer, and that was his answer. Okay, here, this is, again, later on, all the foreign people that weren't, now we're not talking about Jews, we're talking about Americans, British, Australians, anybody, Dutch, who were working in Shanghai, got interned later on because the Japanese took over all of it. During the early part, the Japanese only had part of Shanghai. Later on, they took all of it. So they interned all the foreign nationals. And they were able to write mail via the Red Cross. And the Red Cross could get mail through. So the Jewish immigrants befriended people in the attorneys through a fence, and they would hand them slip mail envelopes through the fence to the attorneys, and the attorneys would mail it for them. So here you have attorney mail, paid free. Okay, postage free of Shanghai Post Office. And this went to Palestine. And this person was not a foreign attorney, but he handed it to somebody there who then mailed it for him, which is, they started figuring out how to do this. So you'll see several of them. Again, these are very rare that you have attorney mail getting through. Again, here's another one, and it's addressed to, I don't know where it's addressed to, I can't see that. But anyway, it went by Red Cross, attorney mail, free postage. Okay, this shows you how the German Jews were Germans through and through. Okay, here you are in Shanghai, you got kicked out of Germany, and you have an association of German war invalids, 1914 to 1918. They had an association of war. You understand? These are people who got injured in the First World War. Jewish war invalids. They had an association in Shanghai, which to me proves, they still think in German. Okay, here you have also more. Here's the first one is Gemeinde, Jüdisch Gemeinde, Friends of Jews, and Cultural Association. Again, they're German Jews. They just can't get that out of it. And here you have in German, Jüdische Gemeinde, Communal Association of Central European Jews in Shanghai. Okay, so you had the Shanghai Jews, refugees, wanted to get out, but they were having a problem. So they printed up this thing about 15,000 Shanghai refugees escaped from Nazi terror. So far, we can't stay here. We cannot stay here. They're looking for a way out. So they're writing to, here you have American Joint Distribution Committee. They're sending everyone letters saying, look, help us, we need to get out. The war's still going on, though. There's no way out, nowhere to go. Again, here you have more, you have relief for refugee Jews in Shanghai Association. You have Shanghai Hebrew Mission. You had all kinds of help, self-help, and Jewish groups that were trying to help. These are both 1946, you're getting later on, and they have nowhere to go. Okay, so the war, I'm sorry. Oh, afterwards, okay. Okay, we're getting towards the bottom. Okay, so here again, you have a Shanghai Chinese postcard that didn't get mailed, but on the back of it, the Chinese postcard, best wishes for Happy New Year, Lashana Tova. This is in China, and they're wishing each other Happy New Year's on a Chinese postcard and so forth. Very interesting. Okay, here's more Werner Cohen. Werner Cohen is, and if you see on the bottom, these are to Los Angeles. They made it, this is after the war. The bottom one, the first one is 1941, but here they're addressed to Los Angeles. Werner Cohen made it to Los Angeles. And the war ended, most of you know, I would hope, that when the Americans bombed Japan, and that was the end, August of 45 was the end. But that didn't help the people in China. In Shanghai, where were they going to go? I mean, Israel wasn't existent yet, and nobody was taking them. Nobody was still, there was nothing open for them to leave. So they got stuck. They didn't leave in 1945. They're lucky we have somebody here who was, a lady who was born, her parents were Shanghailanders. They were refugees, and she was born in 1947 in Shanghai. And they didn't get out that fast. Okay, and here's a resettlement. Here you have a resettlement service in Detroit. Somebody writing to somebody in 1947, Mr. Levy, Mrs. Levy got to resettlement service in Detroit. Again, here you have more Jewish agency things. registered from, again, 19 later on. Now, it's time to start getting out, but these people don't have a passport. They have no ID, no official anything. So here they made up, this is made up a temporary certificate in lieu of passport issued by the Austrian community in Shanghai. They made their own passports. See here? He made it, this is his own for Nathan Gruenberg. This is his passport. They made it themselves. So they have some kind of ID. It certifies that he's an immigrant in Shanghai. But this is their own passport. They had no passports. Okay, so the Zionist organization in Shanghai honored 1948 now comes, and they're honoring May 15th, the independence for Israel, and they write in German. Okay, this is the Hatikva in German. This is for the independence of Israel. Hatikva. Okay, so in Shanghai, at that time, there were two wealthy Jewish families, the Kodoris and the Sassoons, and they helped as much as they could. This one is from the Kodori school, which they started school so kids would have a place to go, and these were like concerts and things they put on. And these are two programs from the Kodori school in 1946. I look at the bottom, and so here you have the Kodoris and the Sassoons were helping support the Jewish community. Okay, now we're into family stories, and this is the story of the Mansbacher family. You'll see some of it in here. The Mansbachers family made it to San Diego. Okay, and one day I get a phone call from a young man, and he says, "Look, I know you collect Shanghai memorabilia." I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, my family was from Shanghai," and he said, "I'm not interested in keeping any of it." This was his grandparents and his parents. They were Shanghai landers, and you'll see a lot of their stuff here. And he said, "I'm not interested in keeping any of it." I said, "Are you sure?" "Yes." So I paid what he wanted and bought it, but very unusual. So you'll see, but this was everything. The Mansbach, they had all the paperwork from when they left Germany and the Nazis' permission to leave and so forth. So you'll see documents. So here's one of them and here is Julius Israel Mansbacher. They had to use the name. And this was his folded documentation when he arrived, April 1st, 1940. And this thing was folded so many times and repaired, he must have carried it with him at all times. So there's a larger copy of it outside, but here is his picture, and this is Julius Mansbacher, who made it to San Diego, and very interesting. And here's again more of his family. This is his daughter. The daughter, if you look on here, it says she's 9 years old, schoolgirl. It says how old she is somewhere. She was not, here it is, 9 years old, the third line down, female, and she's a schoolgirl. Later on, you'll see stuff where she was 13, but everybody had to have this paperwork filled out from when they got there. And here's his wife, who had made up, so she has some kind of ID also. And this is so that they could leave. This is guaranteed that their health was all right in Shanghai. They're getting ready to leave Shanghai. And here's his ID card of identification. This is also Mr. Mansbacher from Shanghai International Committee. Okay, and here is mail from the Mansbachers. They were trying to find a place to go. So they finally got to Hong Kong, and they were writing to, actually it was addressed to their family, and Blumenthal Mansbacher, and then Julius Mansbacher, I guess he made it, no, it was addressed to Shanghai. They're from Hong Kong. Anyway, they're trying to get out and get to Hong Kong, get anywhere. There are only certain places they could go. Luckily, they made it to San Diego. And the next one is the Gutenberg family. This is really a sad story. It was a father and son, and they were in German, and they made it to England. But the son got interned in Australia, and the father got to Shanghai. So they're writing back and forth, writing for help from each other. Son is interned in a horrible area in Australia, horrible, and the father's in Shanghai. And they write back and forth, and here they got somebody to write a letter that they would help them if they got to the United States. I'm sorry, pardon? It's a letter saying that, look, we'll help them if they get to the United States. The Reuben, oh, I'm sorry. You talking about the previous one? What year? If I knew how to go back, if I knew how to go backwards, it'd be good. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Okay. 1941. They're writing to each other. And again, they want to help. They're trying to get help. Neither one of the young man is interned, and the father's in Shanghai. It turned out, though, the bottom line, the young man got out of the internment camp and he joined World War II, and he was a soldier. They let him out, and he fought during, and he survived, and he lived to an old age. Australia, they had horrible internment camps. The British send him by they send him by ship, horrible ships, to internment camps in Australia. This was German Jews, and the British interned them. Horrible situation. Okay, so again, here you have more mail from the Committee of European Jews. Again, must be about the trying to get out of Shanghai Committee. This is mail. Here you have Red Cross mail going back and forth from the Gutenbergs, checking on each other, and the situation didn't change. I mean, finally, the son got out of the internment camp, the father, and here's more mail back and forth. Here you've got Max Gutenberg in Shanghai, in Kangqiu, China, from his son. This is all. And if you look, I don't think you can read well. That box cancel up on the right is an internment camp cancel. So he's in the internment camp writing to his father. And here's more Red Cross mail back and forth from Gutenberg. And here's a radiogram, and this was at the end of the war, they're trying to get out somewhere. Okay, let's talk about the Hendlers. This is really an interesting story. So Mrs. Hendler was a bridge player in Montreal, and she with her lady friends, and they were talking. And at the end of the war, they decided, well, we got to do something. So they got together and they decided they were going to start sending care packages to deeply displaced person camps. And because they're Montreal and Canadian, they needed to send to a British camps. And they sent it originally to Bergen-Belsen, and the head rabbis there, and they were trying. But she said, look, we're going to send stuff, but we need to make sure that they get it. So please have the people write us a note that they received the packages. To start with, they sent party dresses and things like that, which were useless. So then they said, no, we don't need party dresses. We need real clothes, and we need other things and money. So here they said, so here is a letter where they actually listed, which is really unusual, they listed the names of all the people who got their packages. So they sent it back to Mrs. Hendler and her lady friends at the Bridge Group. And they sent a lot of it. They sent a lot of stuff. And here's actually a letter from Shanghai. I forget to tell you how. Okay, so she was doing Bergen-Belsen, which was British, and one of the internees in Bergen-Belsen said to her, "Look, I have a brother in Shanghai who needs help." So she started doing Shanghai also. So here is a letter to her addressed back to her from Shanghai to Montreal, and they listed each address and each person as what they got. Really unusual to be able to find the names of each place where they lived on Ward Road and so forth, and thanking them for what they got, because they were only concerned that they would get the items. And here's a list at the end of the war of how much she sent to each place and how much money they spent. They sent 1,918 packages, it looks like, and so this was their inventory of what they had done during the war. Really great thing. And this, believe it or not, somebody came to me at a stamp show and said, look, I understand you collect Jewish related things. I have this package of all this mail. I said, great. And it was just unbelievable. All the thank you notes from the people who received clothes and packages. Okay. Oh, well, anyway, so I do want to say that we have we have our Shanghai survivor. I'm sorry. Raise your hand there. Jack Klein is here, and he is actually a Shanghai survivor. He was a young boy when he was there. And Jack, if he's up to it, you want to tell us a few things about, you maybe hand him a microphone.
Sure. We lived right across the street from the camp. The camp was uh, at at, at uh, 305. That means 350. Uh,
I think Congston Road. What was it? What road was it?
well, Kumping Road.
Okay.
Kumping Road was where we lived.
Okay.
Okay, so we
Jack Hole, yeah.
so that was the last address. So that can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you perfect.
Okay, perfect. I had a good friend of mine who lived there, right across, right at the place, the Hong Kong place, and I still keep in communication with him. I don't know if anybody knows Seisner. Nobody probably knows them. They lived in the same lane, on the other side of the lane, and we communicated up till recently. So the idea is I had come over here by myself, and as a result, was here and lived here for 2 years without my parents' help or my brother's help. My brother, who was an invalid, was unfortunate. When we came to Shanghai, he unfortunately received infantile paralysis, and so he wasn't very well accomplished. So then, I opened up a business over here, and then continue from here.
You were bar mitzvah in
Got
Shanghai.
married.
Jack,
What?
You were bar mitzvah in Shanghai. When you went to Shanghai, you were
About Shanghai,
yeah,
Israel.
you were bar
Shanghai, then
mitzvah.
you went to Israel.
Yeah,
Not here.
you were bar mitzvah in Shanghai,
Yeah, what about it?
but you were bar mitzvah
Yeah, well, listen, at 13, I was
in Shanghai.
in Shanghai, and as a consequence, I subsequently immigrated to Israel when Israel opened up. So it wasn't easy, but I had bar mitzvah in Israel. So at 13. So I had bar mitzvah in Israel and
In Shanghai when you were 13.
it's
it's a jump.
interesting. So I became an Israel citizen, which is interesting because Shanghai was a completely different world. It
Your father started a business in Israel, right?
my father was what was mentioned over here. My father was a businessman who subsequently went into the real estate business that he established before. In Berlin, he was a businessman and independent. Then subsequently, when we came here, it was 4 years later, and we came on the, as I remember, a Japanese ship, Hakuzaku Maru, which was a Japanese ship, fully Japanese. And my brother came 2 years later. And so as a consequences, we started living, which is not simple in a foreign land.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
What?
I think Noreen, we got Noreen Summer. Noreen, you want to stand up? What's that? Give this microphone to Noreen. Noreen, are you going to stand up? Noreen, we need you. Okay, you want to stand up over here? Come on up.
Huh?
Come up, Noreen.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Noreen's husband, Hurst, was a Shanghai lander and a survivor. He belonged to this synagogue, and she's got some pictures here. How about Noreen? These two pictures here of her husband on the ship coming to Shanghai with his brother, I think. And a picture of they started a business in Shanghai. The problem was it was a really nice women's clothing store, but nobody had money and nobody needed fancy clothes. So let me show you pictures there. Tell about it.
Hold the pictures up. Oh.
Alan will get it. Alan, there you go.
Okay. Well, partly I just want to say that I think it needs a little bit of background because Hearst's mother was divorced from their father, and these two boys she moved from Breslau to Berlin, and she was working in a department store, Wertheimer's department store, selling women's dresses, which is why they opened a dress store in Shanghai, because she knew what styles were popular and things like that. But her mother, she lived with her mother, and she went to work, and she had these two boys, and then her mother died. She lost her job when they would not allow the Jewish people to work at it was a Jewish store as well. So the boys were put into a Waisenhaus, an orphanage. And even though they were not orphans, they got schooling there. They got, they actually got some religious education and whatnot because it was that way. So, to make a long story short, his mother started dating a fellow by the name of Fritz, and he was a down importer and a successful businessman in that field. And after Kristallnacht, and they were dating, and on weekends they'd come and take the boys out for an event and things like that. After Kristallnacht, he escaped, being picked up and everything, but eventually he was called in and they interviewed him. He got some kind of a boost from his employer saying he was an okay guy, and but as he was leaving, he heard these boots behind him, and he thought, oh, God, I'm not going to make it out of here. But it turned out, the fellow said, Herr Sommer, he said, we were in school together in Frankfurt am Main, and I just wanted to know, do you have any money? And he said, why do you ask? You don't answer a question. And he said, if you have it, get out in the next couple of days. So he was warned. And then, to make a long story short, he married her mother within days. and they departed on a ship. But they had both of them had family there. Elsie had a relative who worked with the Jüdische Gemeinde, and Fritz had a sister who worked for in a company there, and they were watching out for the boys. And when they got to Shanghai and everything turned out okay, they sent for them. So this is why John said they don't look like refugees. They look kind of nicely dressed and stuff. And so there they were, but they were alone on that ship. A relative paid some couple that were on the ship to kind of watch out for them. But my husband always talked about they didn't do a great job, because even in the picture you can see he has a scar on his head. So these two boys were just running around the ship having a good time themselves. So they didn't suffer that way. And then the other wonderful story is that when Fritz and Elsie were on the ship, and they out of Genoa, and they got into international waters, Fritz suddenly said to Elsie, "Go to the purser and get an iron. I have some ironing." And he was unpacking. She said, "Fritz, you're we're just unpacking here. Why are you so worried about wrinkles and things like that?" And he said, "Get an iron." And when she brought it back, he was pulling large Deutschmarks out of a shoe tree. He didn't put them in the soles of the shoes because he knew those would be, but it was those wire shoe trees that had, and so he had wound up every single one, and he had lots of money with him. So that is how they came into Shanghai, with money. And that's when they started the store. And so things kind of went pretty well for them initially. And when the boys got there, they were in one of the good schools and things like that. But it was when the Japanese then came in, they were put into the ghetto and had, all of the difficulties of having enough food and getting. The father had dysentery and other kinds of all those kinds of things. But to make a long story short, they all survived, and I'm very grateful to Fritz for all of his contribution to it. And ironically, he's the only father those two boys knew. And I was also a divorced mother, and Hearst was the wonderful stepfather to the child that I brought into that marriage. So it sort of was a gift. So
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This was interesting because nobody was allowed to take out money. So I'd never heard this before, but they had it hidden in the closed thing or something, closed tree. Very interesting. So anyway, we want to thank everyone. There's a great, yeah, I'm sorry, I missed a question. Go ahead. Yes, Jack, you have a question? Yeah, I can't hear.
To mention, I have something interesting to mention. My father was in the clothing business, and he had a very successful clothing business in Berlin. Subsequently, every night, the German marched down from where he lived. And as a consequence, this was a march that mentioned Jewish
Jewish blood should flow.
it mentioned Jewish
Isn't it?
no. But anyways,
It's a crystal knot, right?
it mentioned Crystal Nacht, and on the 28th of October, let's see, October, I think it is,
November.
November, they the German military uh, uh, came down from above, and what they did is they had a Kristallnacht, and that's very famous. The Kristallnacht was famous because it started breaking glass and demonstrating and showing off who they really are, and and that brought my father to demonstrate that he should pick up and leave the country.
Right. Thank you. Actually, as we saw in the slides here, Kristallnacht was the turning point when the Jews realized that being a German Jew didn't hold water anymore. That you were a Jewish German, not a German Jew. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Anyway. Okay. There's plenty of great cookies and desserts from the ladies. And as I mentioned, we have fortune cookies that are kosher. Yes, yes. Okay. I'm sorry. What?
People wanted to ask some questions.
Okay, first we got to get a microphone because I don't hear too well.
The first question is, how did you get all these cards?
Okay. Look, as I mentioned, I'm a stamp collector, and Fritz Gelb, who was a stamp collector, belonged to the Sequoia Stamp Club, and he and I were good friends, and he's the one who got me interested. I was just always interested in Jewish Israel, anything Jewish-related stamps, and we started talking about Shanghai, and he started taking me to Shanghai Lander, like they had like convention. They had one in Foster City. In fact, Michael Blumenthal, who was a survivor, was there. And I got very interested. So I started buying anything that was Shanghai related, Shanghai Ghetto, Shanghai Jewish, anything Jewish Shanghai. And this is my personal collection. I have more that isn't, this is one of each kind of things, but we have backup a lot of things from these like the Hendler family or the family from San Diego. I have lots and lots of stuff. So these are highlights of
Okay.
my collection.
Second question. Was there a Jewish community in Shanghai prior to the German
Okay. Yes. Okay. Good question.
occupation?
When they had the revolution in Russia, the white Russians, which were a lot of them were Jewish, left and went to Harbin, China, and then from Harbin they went to Shanghai. So when all these German and Austrian Jews were coming in, the Japanese didn't know what to do, and they made it a thing that all the Jews who came in after 1939 had to go into this ghetto area. The Jews that were already there, they were in the different French concession, international settlement, they were Russian Jews and Polish Jews, but mostly Russian Jews who were white Russians, and they didn't have to go in. So there were Jews there that were not in the same restrictions as these. You're right.
The Russian Jews help out with the.
They didn't have much money either. I don't want to tell you. One of the things I read said the Russian Jews helped. My belief is most of it came from the Jewish agencies and the Sassoons and and so forth.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, wait for the microphone so everybody can.
Okay, that I didn't say. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. 18,000 Jews made it out. Of that, a small amount were not Germans and Austrians. There were some mixed ones. Plus, you have the yeshiva. I forget, a couple of hundred yeshiva Jews made it, and they were the only ones. As I mentioned, the only European yeshiva that survived was the Mir Yeshiva that was in Shanghai, and they became, as I mentioned, Brooklyn and Jerusalem, and they're the biggest yeshiva organization today.
One more question here.
I just want to tell a story. Ed and I happened to be in Israel at the same time, and Ed said to me, "Come, are you doing anything this afternoon?" I said, "No." So we got on a shuk, and we went to Jerusalem. And he says, "We're meeting a guy who has an envelope that was used when the siege of Nahariya by the Arabs took place. And what the people did in Nahariya, they wrote their own stamps. And Ed and I were meeting this man who had one of those envelopes that Ed was going to take and sell to a collector. And it was a very interesting experience for me, and I was crazy about it.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay. So we'll have your microphone. I don't hear well, so it's all right.
I was in Shanghai about 10 years ago, and I took a tour of the Jewish tour of Shanghai, and it was run by a Israeli photojournalist who had done some work in Shanghai, and obviously Jewish, and he had talked to some people, and they said, we've seen Hebrew writing on the side of a bridge or on steps up to buildings, and he started to investigate, and he realized there was a lot of Jewish tombstones that after the Cultural Revolution, they had just decimated these cemeteries and used these tombstones as building construction materials. And he went and he collected as many as he could, and he has it. This is 10 years. I don't know what happened since then. And he had them stored in a warehouse, and he wanted to eventually have build some kind of monument. But that whole part of where the Jewish settlement was, it's all destroyed. You can go through these museums now, but the government was building up Shanghai, the whole modern part, and people were coming to visit, and they wanted to see, well, where's the history? And they couldn't understand. We have all these modern buildings. Why do you want to go see, these ruins and old, the old history? So now it's because of all the interest in the tourism now that there's more development going on. And if you ever go and there's the tour, I highly recommend it. It was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. There was a story in a magazine of exactly what you said, that they found the tombstones were being used for sidewalks and bridges, and he started collecting them, just the same thing you saw. Anyway, very true. Anything else?
Yes, I would like to say something. I have a friend whose mother was a white Russian and was living in Shanghai before the war. But she happened to have a son who was born in the United States. She had made a special trip here with her merchant marine husband to have her son born here. So when the Japanese captured Shanghai, she was, and her family, her daughter and son, were put in the internment camp. But because he was an American citizen, he was allowed to receive packages from the Red Cross. So he was provided with those packages all through the war. And the Japanese allowed them to keep those packages. I thought it was very interesting because when you mentioned Bergen-Belsen, that these women from Montreal were sending packages to Bergen-Belsen for Jews. I mean, that sounds absolutely bizarre to
These were
me.
DPs. After the war. These were displaced persons.
I
This is
see.
not during the war.
Because
This is
I
after the-
thought you meant during the war, and I said that
after the war, they
way.
decided to do something for the displaced persons.
Okay.
But it was Bergen-Belsen where they had them.
Right.
And it
Okay.
was British. Bergen-Belsen was held by the British at that time.
Okay, that straightens it out. Thank you. Right.
Okay. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Enjoy your sweets and desserts. What another question? Okay. Thank you again. Enjoy yourself.
I tried my best.
Those were people who were on. That's what it is. People who were on. Truly paying attention.
Collection.
Thank you. Stephanie Rose came down. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you came. Good. Yeah.
We're gonna go.
I missed some stuff, you forget, I'm doing it, and I forgot. There's one section where they were forced into the ghetto, which is where they lived already, but they came to the ghetto. And I didn't.
Oh, I see. This,
I just wanted to see, you know the book, The Last Kings of Shanghai?
Pardon?
You know the book, The Last Kings of Shanghai?
Oh, the last,
My heavens, you need to
the
read.
last Kings, Shanghai?
Yes, it's about the Sassoons and the
The last
Kadoras.
book I have.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, that's,
The Kadoras, yes.
okay,
I
yeah.
didn't remember the title.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. And yeah, the large section, that's why I'm here. A friend of mine, it's a book group. and she belongs to the synagogue, and she
Okay.
book group about this. I just finished the book, so I'm like,
Great book.
I've got to go see
Great,
it. Thank
interesting book.
you.
Good.
Yeah, it was fascinating, something
thank
I had no idea.
Good, thank you.
Address, this is actually on your presentation.
Exactly,
in the
that's the
map.
road, yeah.
That's the road, yeah.
It's right in the middle.